In the heart of the Wild West, a small town bustled with life, despite the biting chill of winter. Dusty streets were lined with wooden buildings, their roofs weighed down by snow. Cattle rustled nearby, and townsfolk hurried past each other, their breath visible in the frosty air. Children laughed, darting between snowdrifts, while shopkeepers shouted to draw customers into their stores. Amid the chaos, Grizzly Jack stood at the edge of the square, a mountain man known for his ruggedness and solitude. He was used to the quiet of the mountains, but felt the energy of the town pulling him in today. As he watched, his keen eyes caught sight of Mei Ling, a young Chinese girl. She looked lost and afraid, her dark hair framing her tear-streaked face. Her husband, Mr. Wu, had just kicked her out in front of everyone, his voice harsh against the laughter of the crowd. "Get out! You're useless!" he yelled, leaving Mei Ling trembling. Grizzly Jack felt a fierce anger rise within him as he listened to the murmurs around him. "Someone should help her," a nearby man said. Jack nodded silently to himself, knowing he couldn't turn away from this. In that moment he felt a spark of determination rise in his chest. Grizzly Jack was not just any mountain man. He was a legend in the nearby hills. Standing tall with a thick beard and weathered skin, he had spent years living alone in the wilderness, away from the chaos of town life. His strong hands were calloused from handling rough terrain and heavy timber, and his deep-set blue eyes seemed to hold the wisdom of countless winters. Jack preferred the solitude of the mountains, where he could hear only the whisper of the trees and the call of wildlife. But today was different. Today he felt a pull towards Mei Ling, who stood trembling in front of the crowd. Mei Ling was a delicate figure, just 20 years old, with gentle features marked by sorrow. Her dark hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, and her bright eyes shone with both fear and determination. She had come to this town seeking a better life, but found herself trapped in an unhappy marriage with Mr. Wu. As Jack watched her stand there alone, his heart ached for her. He knew what it felt like to be an outcast, to face challenges alone. Suddenly he shouted above the murmurs of the crowd, "That girl deserves kindness. She shouldn't face this alone." His voice rang out, surprising even himself as he took a step forward toward Mei Ling. The townsfolk gathered around the center of the square, their faces painted with shock and curiosity as Mr. Wu's angry voice pierced through the winter air. "You're worthless, Mei Ling. Get out of my sight," he bellowed, shoving her forward. The crowd gasped collectively, whispers fluttering like leaves in the wind. Mei Ling stumbled back, her eyes wide with disbelief. She was just a girl in a harsh world, and now she stood alone, exposed to the judgmental gazes of those around her. Her heart raced, and tears welled up in her eyes as she clutched her shawl tightly around her shoulders. The cold nipped at her skin, but it was the sting of humiliation that chilled her to the bone. "What a disgrace," a woman murmured, shaking her head. "How can he treat her like that?" Others nodded, sharing in her pain, but doing nothing to intervene. Mei Ling felt their pity like a weight on her chest, suffocating her. "She deserves better," another man whispered. Grizzly Jack clenched his fists as he watched the scene unfold. He could see fear in Mei Ling's eyes and felt a surge of protective instinct rise within him. This girl should not endure this alone, not in front of a crowd that only watched and whispered. From his vantage point near the edge of the square, Grizzly Jack watched the scene unfold with a heavy heart. Though he stood tall and strong, he felt a deep ache for Mei Ling, whose world had just crumbled around her. Memories of his own lonely life in the mountains flooded back to him, the long nights spent alone under a blanket of stars, and the days filled with silence, save for the rustling of leaves and the distant call of wildlife. He had chosen solitude, but Mei Ling had not. As he observed her trembling figure, he could see the weight of despair in her eyes, a reflection of the isolation he sometimes felt. "She deserves more than this," he thought, frowning as Mr. Wu's words echoed in his mind. The injustice stirred something deep within him. "Why can't they help her?" he murmured to himself, pointingly looking at the crowd that stood by, whispering but doing nothing. They should stand together. Grizzly Jack clenched his fists tightly, feeling a fire ignite in his chest. Her pain was palpable, and he knew all too well that facing struggles alone could break a person's spirit. Determined to change that, he took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to make his voice heard. As Grizzly Jack stepped forward, the townsfolk continued to murmur among themselves, their conversations a mix of sympathy and indifference. "I can't believe he would do that to her," said an elderly woman named Mrs. Thompson, shaking her head. "No woman deserves to be treated like that, especially not in front of so many people." A young man nearby, Tom, shrugged his shoulders. "Why should we get involved? It's not our business. They've always had problems," he replied dismissively. Mrs. Thompson frowned at him. "That's exactly the problem. If we don't help each other, who will? This isn't just about her. It's about all women who suffer in silence." She glanced back at Mei Ling, standing alone and trembling. "I heard she came here looking for a better life," another woman chimed in. "If only someone would give her a chance." "Yeah, but what can we really do?" Tom retorted, crossing his arms. "This is how things are." Grizzly Jack, overhearing their words, felt even more determined. He turned to the crowd, raising his voice. "We can stand together. We can show her she's not alone." A few heads nodded in agreement, but others remained passive, unsure of how to respond to the unfolding drama. After the crowd began to disperse, Grizzly Jack made his way through the lingering townsfolk with purpose, his heart pounding as he approached Mei Ling. She stood alone, her demeanor fragile, shivering against the cold and clutching her shawl tightly. Jack knelt to meet her gaze, ensuring she felt his kindness rather than intimidation. "You don't have to be alone anymore," he said softly, his deep voice a comforting rumble. "I can help you." Mei Ling looked up at him, confusion and hope battling in her eyes. "But why would you want to help me?" she whispered, her voice trembling like the winter breeze. "Because no one should face such sadness alone," he replied firmly. "I've seen pain in my life too, and I know it can break you if you let it. You deserve better. You deserve safety and kindness." Her tears glistened like icicles as she wiped them away with the back of her hand. "I came here for a new life, but this is not what I imagined." Jack's expression softened. "I understand. Come with me. I have a cabin in the mountains where you can find peace away from all this." She hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes, but Jack added gently, "You'll never be treated that way again, I promise." Mei Ling looked into Grizzly Jack's eyes, her heart racing with uncertainty. "But I don't know you," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can I really trust you?" The fear of the unknown gripped her as she thought about leaving everything behind, even if it meant escaping her husband's cruelty. Jack could see the conflict within her, the flicker of hope battling against the shadows of doubt. He knelt closer, his expression earnest. "I understand your hesitation. I can't change what's happened to you, but I promise to protect you. You will never have to feel alone or afraid again." Her tears shimmered in the winter light as she considered his words. "What if I take a chance and it goes wrong?" she asked, the tremor in her voice betraying her vulnerability. "Life is full of risks," he replied gently, "but sometimes taking a chance is the first step toward a better future. You deserve to be safe and happy." Mei Ling weighed his promise and felt a small spark of hope ignite within her. The thought of a peaceful life away from fear was tempting. "I want to believe you," she said slowly, "but it's hard to shake off the past." Jack nodded, understanding her struggle. "We can face it together, one step at a time." After Mei Ling hesitated but ultimately decided to trust Grizzly Jack, he led her away from the town and into the snowy wilderness. The path wound through towering pine trees, their branches heavy with fresh snow, creating a stunning winter wonderland. The sound of crunching snow beneath their boots echoed in the crisp air, while the soft sunlight sparkled like diamonds upon the white blanket covering the ground. "Just a little farther," Jack said, glancing back at Mei Ling. She followed him, her heart filled with anxiety, but also a flicker of hope. "It's quiet here, but that's what I love about it." Soon they reached his cabin, nestled snugly between two hills. Smoke curled from the stone chimney, hinting at warmth inside. Jack opened the door and stepped aside for Mei Ling to enter first. Inside, she was met with an inviting sight: a small hearth crackling with fire, simple wooden furniture, and a table set with a few provisions. "Welcome to my home," Jack said with a smile. "I may not have much, but it's cozy and safe." Mei Ling took a deep breath, feeling relief wash over her as she stepped further inside. The warmth enveloped her like a comforting embrace. "This is lovely," she replied quietly, glancing around at the simple comforts that felt like refuge from her troubled past. As the days passed, Mei Ling began to feel more at home in Jack's cabin. They worked side by side to prepare for the harsh winter ahead. Together they gathered wood for the fire, and Jack taught her how to stack it efficiently, making sure to keep it dry. "Like this," he demonstrated, arranging the logs with care. "You want the kindling to catch easily." Mei Ling watched attentively, a small smile creeping onto her face as she tried her hand at it. "I never thought I would learn practical skills like this," she admitted. Jack chuckled softly. "We all have things to learn. This is just the beginning." During their work, they began to share stories of their pasts. Mei Ling spoke about her journey from China, her hopes for a better life, and the pain she had endured under Mr. Wu's control. Jack listened intently, nodding and understanding as he shared his own tales of survival in the mountains, his loneliness, and the reason he had chosen solitude. "I've spent many winters alone," Jack said thoughtfully, "but having someone to share them with makes all the difference." Mei Ling's heart warmed at his words, realizing that their bond was growing stronger with each passing day. The laughter and camaraderie between them helped fill the void left by fear and sadness, building trust and understanding as they faced new challenges together. One evening, dark clouds rolled in quickly, and snow began to swirl around the cabin like a wild dance. Grizzly Jack and Mei Ling were inside, preparing a simple dinner when the storm struck with fury. The wind howled outside, rattling the cabin walls, and within moments the peaceful winter landscape transformed into an impenetrable wall of white. "We may be stuck here for a while," Jack said, glancing at the door where snow began to pile up. He moved closer to the window, trying to gauge the severity of the storm, but saw nothing beyond the white blur. Mei Ling's heart raced as she felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. "What if it doesn't stop?" she asked softly, her voice trembling slightly. Jack turned to her, sensing her fear. "We'll be okay," he reassured her. "We have enough wood for the fire and food for several days." As they settled by the hearth, their breaths mingling with the warmth from the crackling flames, Mei Ling pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders. Jack sat close beside her. "You're not alone anymore," he said firmly. In that moment of danger and uncertainty, their bond deepened further. They relied on one another for comfort as they listened to the raging storm outside. "Thank you for bringing me here," Mei Ling whispered, feeling grateful. Jack smiled gently, wrapping a protective arm around her shoulders. "We'll get through this together." As the storm cleared, Grizzly Jack and Mei Ling set off back to town, determination coursing through them. The sun began to break through the clouds, casting a soft glow across the snowy landscape, but Mei Ling's heart raced with anxiety about confronting Mr. Wu. "What if he tries to hurt me again?" she whispered, her breath misting in the cold air. Jack glanced at her reassuringly. "You're not alone this time. I'll be right beside you." His presence gave her strength as they entered the bustling town, where townsfolk were going about their day, still buzzing from the recent storm. When they reached Mr. Wu's storefront, Jack stepped forward confidently. As Mr. Wu emerged, his face twisted with anger upon seeing Mei Ling. "What do you want?" he sneered. "We're here to talk," Jack said firmly, standing tall as he looked directly at Mr. Wu. "You can't treat her like that. She deserves better." Mr. Wu's eyes flared in disbelief. "She's my wife. I can do what I want," he shouted back, taking a step toward Jack. "No," Jack replied fiercely, not backing down. "She's a human being with rights, and you have no right to mistreat her. It ends now." Mei Ling felt a rush of emotions as Jack stood up for her. It was the first time someone had defended her so boldly, igniting a fire of hope in her heart. As Grizzly Jack and Mei Ling stood facing Mr. Wu, the townspeople began to gather, drawn by the commotion. Whispers spread through the crowd, and many were surprised to see Mei Ling standing tall beside Jack, her newfound strength palpable. Mrs. Thompson stepped forward, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd. "We can't allow this kind of treatment in our town. Mei Ling deserves our support, not scorn." Others in the crowd nodded, murmurs of agreement echoing in the air. "She's right. No one should be mistreated like that," a man named Bill chimed in. Jack turned to look at Mei Ling, who was visibly shaken but held her head high. Feeling emboldened by the townspeople's reactions, she spoke up, her voice growing stronger. "I am more than what he made me believe. I am worthy of respect." The shift in the atmosphere was electric as people rallied behind her. Families and neighbors began to step forward, expressing their support for Mei Ling. "We're with you!" called out a woman from the back. Seeing this display of unity, Jack smiled proudly at Mei Ling. The realization that she was no longer alone filled her heart with hope and courage. Together, they faced Mr. Wu, knowing they had the strength of their community behind them, something that had once felt so far out of reach. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between Grizzly Jack and Mei Ling blossomed. One crisp evening, after a long day of preparing their land for spring planting, Jack turned to Mei Ling with a serious expression. The sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, and the warmth of the fire crackled behind them. "Mei Ling," he began, his voice steady yet filled with emotion, "you've shown incredible strength since we first met. You're not just a survivor, you're a fighter, and I admire that." She looked at him, curiosity shining in her eyes. "What are you saying, Jack?" He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. "I want to ask you something important. I'll take the poor Chinese girl as my wife. Together, we'll build a new life." Mei Ling's heart raced at his proposal, joy bubbling within her as tears filled her eyes. "Are you serious?" she asked softly, unable to contain her smile. "Absolutely," Jack replied earnestly. "You deserve happiness and love. I want to share my life with you." With a radiant smile breaking through her tears, she nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, yes, I will." In that moment, they embraced tightly, enveloped in warmth and hope for their future together. Two souls finding solace in one another amidst the challenges of the world around them. With the promise of a shared future lingering in the air, Grizzly Jack and Mei Ling stood together, their hearts intertwined. The cabin felt warmer than ever, filled with love and hope as they began to talk about their dreams. Jack looked into Mei Ling's eyes, realizing that love could blossom even in the most unexpected places. "I've always thought the mountains were my only companion," he said softly, "but you've changed everything for me." Mei Ling smiled, her heart swelling with affection. "And you have shown me that kindness truly exists," she replied. "I never thought I could find happiness after my past." As they stepped outside to gaze at the starry sky, the cold winter night wrapped around them like a comforting blanket. The world felt transformed. Instead of being a place of sorrow, it was now filled with possibilities. "We'll build a life together," Jack promised, standing close to her, "with laughter, joy, and everything we deserve." Mei-Ling nodded, confidence shining in her eyes. "Together, we can face anything." They shared a tender kiss under the shimmering stars, knowing that they had not only found love, but also a deeper purpose in each other's lives. As the winter continued to unfold around them, warmth filled their hearts, reminding them that hope and love could light even the darkest of paths.